The man who invented the foundation of modern AI now puts the odds at 50% that it produces something smarter than humans within 20 years. The industry responded by committing $725 billion to build more of it in 2026 alone. That number is not a projection, it is Q1 2026 earnings guidance. Amazon, $200 billion. Microsoft, $190 billion. Alphabet, up to $190 billion. Meta, up to $145 billion. Combined, a 77% increase over 2025's record. Analysts at Evercore and Bank of America project the total exceeds $1 trillion in 2027. Geoffrey Hinton did not make his warning from a fringe position. He is the most cited computer scientist alive. He built the neural network architecture that underlies every major AI system in production today. His students built GPT. He won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2024 for the work that started all of this. At the Nobel ceremony in December 2024, he stated, "There's a good chance, a 50% chance, that AI surpasses human intelligence within 5 to 20 years. In April 2025, he estimated the probability of AI causing human extinction within 30 years at 10 to 20%. The CapEx charts went up anyway. If this channel is how you track what the headlines miss, subscribe now, before the next one drops. The people making those spending decisions are not uninformed. The CEOs of OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic have all stated publicly that AI poses serious and potentially catastrophic risks. They say it in interviews. They say it in congressional testimony. Then their companies lobby against the regulation that would require them to act on it. Hinton said it directly in a CBS News interview. The big companies are lobbying to get less AI regulation. There is hardly any regulation as it is, and they want less. CBS News asked every major AI lab how much of their compute is dedicated to safety research. Not one gave a number. Industry estimates place the figure at approximately 1% of total compute. Hinton has called for a third. The gap between 1% and 33% is not a rounding error. It is the entire distance between building something and building something you can control. Meanwhile, the time between major model releases shrank by 43% between 2023 and 2025. Each new generation creates qualitatively new capabilities. Each new capability creates qualitatively new risks. The International AI Safety Report 2026, backed by over 100 researchers and governments from the United States to China to Singapore, confirmed in February 2026 that alignment, interpretability, and control remain unresolved problems as the gains continue to accelerate. The AI safety clock, maintained by the International Institute for Management Development, began at 29 minutes to midnight in September 2024. By March 2026, it stood at 18 minutes to midnight. The industry's answer: increased CapEx by 77%. The financial structure underneath that CapEx is not stable. Amazon is projected to generate negative free cash flow of up to $28 billion in 2026, while spending $200 billion on AI infrastructure. Alphabet quadrupled its long-term debt in 2025 to $46.5 billion. Bank of America analysis found that AI capital expenditure is now consuming approximately 94% of hyperscaler operating cash flows, up from 76% in 2024. The race is being financed. It is not being earned. The biggest infrastructure build in the history of technology is being partially funded by debt, while the people funding it acknowledge they cannot fully predict what they are funding. This is the WorldCom parallel no one is naming. In the late 1990s, the fiber optic build-out was also driven by real and growing demand. WorldCom, Global Crossing, and dozens of others built infrastructure against demand curves that never arrived at the scale financed. WorldCom destroyed approximately $180 billion in shareholder value. The fiber was real. Global Crossing still filed for bankruptcy. The infrastructure can be genuine, and the valuation can still be wrong. The marginal dollar of $725 billion in 2026 AI capex is being spent on projected future demand, not documented present demand. The debt financing, it does not care about that distinction. Cisco held the essential supplier position of that cycle. Every company building the internet needed Cisco equipment. The market priced Cisco as the one company that wins, regardless of which internet company succeeds. Cisco's stock fell 86% between March 2000 and October 2002. It took more than 20 years to recover its peak price. NVIDIA holds the same position in this cycle. Every company building AI needs NVIDIA GPUs. The market prices NVIDIA as the one company that wins, regardless of which AI company succeeds. Amazon, Microsoft, Google, and Meta are all building proprietary chips. Amazon's Trainium, Google's TPS, Microsoft's Maya, Meta's MTIA, specifically designed to reduce that dependency. These programs are 3 to 5 years from meaningful scale. For now, NVIDIA captures the capex cycle. The question the Cisco chart already answered is what happens when that cycle normalizes. Subscribe if you want to know what the next cycle looks like before it arrives. The workers absorbing the cost of this speed are not in the earnings calls. An MIT study published in November 2025 found that current AI systems are already economically viable to replace 11.7% of the US workforce. That represents approximately $1.2 trillion in wages, not theoretical future displacement. Current cost competitive displacement at today's model capabilities without further breakthroughs. The World Economic Forum's 2025 Future of Jobs report found 41% of employers globally plan to reduce headcount due to AI within 5 years. In the first half of 2025 alone, approximately 77,999 tech job losses were directly attributed to AI. The new roles that AI is projected to create require master's degrees in 77% of cases and doctoral degrees in 18%. The workers being displaced are not the workers positioned to access those roles. Hinton said it plainly. It is going to create massive unemployment and a huge rise in profits. The profits accrue to equity holders. The unemployment is diffuse and uncompensated. The ordinary worker losing a job to AI automation is not holding equity in the company that deployed the system. They may, however, be holding it without knowing it. Amazon, Microsoft, Alphabet, and Meta are all S&P 500 components. Every standard index fund holds them. Every 401k tracking the index holds them. Every pension fund using passive strategies holds them. The company spending $725 billion on infrastructure they cannot fully control, financed partly by debt, consuming 94% of their operating cash flows. Those are the largest components of the most widely held financial instrument in American history. If the capex cycle breaks, the correction does not stay in Silicon Valley. It moves through the index. It reaches retirement accounts that never made a deliberate choice to bet on AI infrastructure at these valuations. The people most exposed to the downside are not the venture capitalists. They already own equity at earlier, lower valuations. The people most exposed are the passive investors who will absorb the correction at peak pricing. Workers whose retirement savings are concentrated in the same companies, eliminating their job categories. The financial risk and the safety risk are not separate stories. They are the same story at different scales. The financial risk is that $725 billion in capex does not generate the returns required to justify the debt and the valuation. The safety risk is that the systems built by that spending develop capabilities that the 1% of compute allocated to safety research cannot understand or control. Hinton did not separate these concerns. He left Google because both were accelerating together. The capabilities growing, the understanding not keeping pace, and the companies building the systems successfully removing the external mechanisms that might have forced a pause. There is a direct precedent for this structure. Frédéric Joliot won a Nobel Prize in chemistry for his work on artificial radioactivity. He then spent the rest of his career warning about the catastrophic consequences of the technology he helped create. The world acknowledged the warning. It built more weapons than safeguards. It eventually produced binding international treaties. The Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, the Chemical Weapons Convention, but only after the risk became undeniable. AI has produced no equivalent binding global framework as of 2026. The EU AI Act, which began phased implementation in August 2024, is the world's first comprehensive AI regulatory framework, and the companies subject to it are lobbying to weaken it. The technology underneath all of this is not the problem. Neural networks, deep learning, inference at scale. These are tools. The genuine medical breakthroughs, the scientific acceleration, the productivity gains that real enterprise users are generating. Those are real, and they do not depend on $725 billion in annual capex or NVIDIA trading at Cisco 2,000 multiples. Fiber optic cable survived the collapse of Global Crossing. The infrastructure remained when the company did not. The models survive whatever happens to the valuation. The research survives whatever happens to the stock price. What does not survive is the current narrative. The narrative that speed and capital are the same as control, that the profit motive and the safety motive are aligned, that a Nobel Prize awarded for creating the technology is also an endorsement of the pace at which it is being deployed without guardrails, that the workers and the pensioners and the passive investors absorbing the risk of this race were ever actually part of the decision to run it. Hinton did not leave Google because he thought AI would fail. He left because he thought it might succeed, faster than anyone had planned for, in ways nobody yet knows how to govern. The industry's answer to that warning was to add 77% to the CAPEX line and ask no AI lab to account for its safety spending. The technology will outlast the fantasy built around it. What breaks first is not the invention. It is the story that the people racing to build it were also the right people to decide whether it was safe. If that gap concerns you, subscribe. This channel tracks the distance between what is being said and what is being done.